I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am, staring at a phone screen that's practically burning my fingers. My name's Mike, and I've been married to Lisa for about 10 years now. We've always had our ups and downs, mostly because Lisa's got that sharp tongue and a real talent for making me feel like I'm barely holding everything together. But I loved her, or at least I thought I did. She's beautiful, confident, and I'll admit kind of bitchy in a way that I found kind of sexy at first. Things changed after my accident. I was hit by a car during a run, broke my pelvis, and spent months in recovery. The worst part wasn't the pain, it was the fact that I couldn't walk at first. That's when the exoskeleton came into play. It was a fancy piece of tech, really expensive, but it helped me stand and walk again. Lisa was supportive at first, but I could tell she was getting restless, maybe even annoyed by the whole thing. I figured she was just tired of my rehab routine, tired of the long hours of therapy, or maybe she was just over the whole saving my marriage thing. But during one of those late nights, I started noticing things. Small stuff. Her phone kept ringing at odd hours. She'd get defensive if I asked who it was. Then I noticed the sudden change in her attitude. She became more bitchy, more dismissive, and her excuses about where she was going or who she was with started to sound hollow. I kept telling myself it was just stress, that she was tired, that maybe I was imagining it. But then I saw something that made my stomach turn upside down. It was a message on her phone from a number I didn't recognize. No name attached, just a string of messages that didn't make any sense at first. But then I saw the words, "Can't wait to see you again," and "Tonight's going to be perfect." My heart skipped a beat. I scrolled further and found out she'd been meeting someone who, in her own words, was giving her the kind of attention I hadn't been able to offer lately. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, and I didn't even know how to process it. There was no denying it. Lisa was cheating on me. I confronted her the next day. I didn't even try to sugarcoat it. I just laid it all out there, the messages, the secret meetings, everything. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She rolled her eyes, called me paranoid, and told me I was making a big deal out of nothing. She claimed I was overreacting, that I was just insecure because I was stuck in this damn suit. She said the messages were probably from some old friend she was just catching up with, that I was imagining things, that I was jealous and unreasonable. I could see the disdain in her eyes, like I was just an annoyance she'd rather push aside. But I knew better. I knew what I saw. And I felt like I'd been shot in the chest. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt. It was the way she lied so effortlessly, the way she dismissed what was painfully obvious. It was like she enjoyed lying to my face, as if I was nothing more than a bother. That's when I started to realize that this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the fact that she didn't even care enough to hide it properly anymore. She was daring me to find out, daring me to confront her. That night, I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was how I'd trusted her, how I'd fought for us, and how she was out there with someone else while I was stuck in this damn exoskeleton, trying to rebuild my life. The betrayal was one thing, but the way she lied so easily, the way she dismissed my feelings, that was a whole new level of pain. I started questioning everything about our marriage, about her, about myself. Was I just some guy she put up with? Did she see me as less now because I was injured? Or was she just using me as a backup plan? I didn't have answers yet, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Something had to give. And I wasn't going to let her get away with it without a fight. The next few days were a blur of anger, confusion, and a weird sense of numbness I couldn't shake. I kept replaying everything in my head, the little signs I missed, the moments I brushed off as normal relationship stuff. But deep down, I knew I had to get to the bottom of this, no matter how much it hurt. I started digging through her phone more carefully, looking for any other signs, any other clues. I found some more messages, flirtatious, suggestive stuff. She was clearly sneaking around behind my back, and she didn't even care if I found out anymore. But what really threw me for a loop was the timing. I'd been using that exoskeleton suit for months, and it tracked everything. It recorded the times I was in it, how long I wore it, what parts of my body it was working on. I'd never looked at the data closely. I trusted the technology to do its job. But when I finally did, I noticed something strange. There were logs showing the suit being active when I wasn't wearing it. At first, I thought maybe it was some kind of glitch, but then I saw the timestamps. It was during a period when I was out of town visiting my parents. My wife was supposed to be with me, but the logs showed the suit had been used extensively during that exact window. And not just for a quick session, it was being operated for hours, with detailed diagnostics running. That's when it hit me like a freight train. Lisa wasn't just cheating on me with some guy she met at a bar or through a dating app. She was cheating with my own body's recovery tech. The device that was supposed to help me walk again, that I trusted to rebuild my strength, was being used without me. Someone else was in control. Someone else was making my body do things I didn't authorize. And the real kicker, the logs showed that it was her, or someone she was with, using the suit's diagnostic functions, fiddling with my progress while I was helpless. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I felt betrayed on every level, physically, emotionally, even by the technology I thought was helping me heal. That's when I started to think about how to confront her again, how to get her to admit what she'd been doing. I needed the truth, and I needed to know just how deep this was, but I also knew that I couldn't just yell at her and hope for some remorse. I had to be smart. I had to catch her in the act or force her to come clean. So I waited. I kept all the evidence ready and started planning how to approach her. I stayed quiet for a few days, trying to gather my thoughts, trying to figure out what her worst lie would be. I wondered how she would spin it, if she'd still insist she was innocent, or if she'd try to turn it around on me, say I was paranoid or distrustful. But I also knew that I couldn't just keep quiet forever. If she was messing around with my body, with my recovery, then she was crossing a line that I didn't think I'd ever forgive. The thing is, I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. All I wanted was to have a normal fucking life again, to walk without pain, to feel like I was finally rebuilding something real. Instead, I found out my wife was out there, betraying me, and using the very thing that was supposed to give me back my independence. That realization made my blood boil. I felt like I'd been sucker punched one more time, but this time it was in my own house with my own wife and the technology I trusted being turned against me. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I knew I had to act quickly. The betrayal was out in the open now, and I couldn't let her get away with it. The next step was clear in my mind. I had to catch her in the act. I didn't want to just accuse her blindly. I needed definitive proof. I started setting up a kind of trap, knowing that she'd try to cover her tracks better now that I had the evidence of her using the suit without me. I secretly installed a hidden app on my phone that could monitor the suit's activity logs remotely. I wanted to see in real time if she tried to use it again when I wasn't around. I also kept my eyes peeled for any signs of her sneaking around the house or being overly secretive. But honestly, I was more focused on catching her through the tech. The thing about Lisa is that she's a skilled liar. She's used to spinning stories and convincing people she's innocent. The way she would deny everything, call me paranoid, accuse me of projecting her own guilt, it was all so typical. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew her pattern. When she got nervous, she'd become even more bitchy and dismissive, like she thought she could talk her way out of anything. I was waiting for her to slip up, and one evening she did. I was sitting in the living room pretending to be engrossed in some dumb TV show. I kept the phone with the monitoring app close by. Suddenly, I saw the logs pop up on my screen. The suit was active again, hours after she'd told me she was going out with her friends. The activity was intense, with diagnostic data pouring in, and I knew right then she was trying to hide something. She'd been in the suit's control app, manipulating it, probably to cover her tracks. I didn't even wait. I grabbed my phone and called her name from the other room. She came out, acting casual, but her face was tense. I showed her the logs, the data that proved she'd been in my suit while I was miles away. Her eyes widened just for a second. That quick flash of panic told me everything I needed to know. Then she spun around and snapped, "You're crazy, Mike. You think I'd cheat on you with some tech? That's pathetic." She tried to brush it off like it was nothing, but I could see her hands trembling just a little. I pressed her further. I asked her who she was meeting, what she was doing with the suit. She started throwing out wild lies, saying she was helping a friend with some project or that she'd been just checking the diagnostics out of curiosity. That's all she'd say, over and over, but I knew better. She was lying through her teeth. The anger inside me was boiling over. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious at the same time. How many times had I trusted her? How many times had she lied to my face? I knew she was hiding something big, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I told her she needed to tell me the truth, or I'd start digging even deeper, finding more evidence. Her face twisted into a sneer and she spat. "You're just paranoid. You think I'd cheat on you. With your stupid tech. Please, Mike, grow up." That's when I realized she was in full damage control mode. She was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt my own judgment. But I had evidence now and I wasn't going to back down. I told her I'd seen enough, that I knew she'd been lying all along. I said I'd be watching her closely from now on. That night I stayed up, staring at the logs, replaying everything she'd said, every lie she'd spun, every excuse she'd thrown at me. It was a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The trust I'd had in her was shattered. The woman I once loved was now just a stranger in my own house, someone who'd betrayed me deeply, using my own body's recovery as the pawn in her game. The worst part, I felt helpless, like I was just a passenger in my own life now. I kept thinking about what comes next, what I could do to undo this, but honestly I was just exhausted. All I could do was watch her, wait for her next move, and prepare myself for whatever was coming. The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope. I was constantly alert, watching her every move, trying to catch her slip up again. I kept the logs running, still monitoring the suit remotely. Every time I saw activity, my stomach clenched. It was like living with a ticking time bomb, waiting for her to make another mistake. I couldn't ignore the feeling that she was still hiding something, that she hadn't fully come clean. The more I watched, the more I realized just how deep her deception went. One afternoon, I decided I had to confront her again, but this time I wanted to do it differently. I didn't want her to feel cornered or defensive. I knew she was good at lying, and I needed to catch her off guard. I waited until she was in the kitchen, pretending to be busy with some trivial task. I casually brought up the logs on my phone, showing her the recent activity. Her eyes flicked to the screen, and for a moment I thought she'd crack. She scoffed and said, "That's probably some glitch. You're overreacting, Mike." Her voice was dismissive, but I saw the flicker of worry behind her eyes. She tried to brush it off, but I wasn't buying it. I pressed her further, asking her point blank who she'd been meeting, what she'd been doing with my exoskeleton. That's when she snapped. "Oh, give me a break," she sneered. "You think I'm so bored I'd cheat with some tech? This is ridiculous. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. Honestly, you're just insecure because of your stupid accident. Maybe if you weren't so dependent on that suit, you'd see the truth. You're paranoid. You're always accusing me of stuff. Maybe you're the one cheating, huh?" That was a cheap shot, and I knew it. I felt the blood rush to my head. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand the truth, but I kept my cool. Instead, I said, "I have the logs, Lisa. I know what you've been doing. You're lying to my face, and I'm sick of it." I told her I was done playing her game, that I deserved honesty, and if she didn't come clean, I'd start making some serious decisions. She rolled her eyes, huffed, and stormed out of the kitchen, muttering something about me being crazy. But I was. I knew the truth, and I wasn't about to let her dismiss it anymore. I could see her frustration, her anger, even her desperation. She was trying to keep her composure, but I knew she was cracking. That's when I realized that this wasn't going to be a quick fix. This was going to get worse before it got better, or worse. It could destroy everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Later that evening, I sat alone in my room, staring at the logs again. I thought about everything she'd said, her accusations, her denials. I thought about how much I'd trusted her, how much I'd fought to get back on my feet, only to find out she was out there, betraying me with my own tech. The feeling of betrayal was so raw I could taste it. It was like being punched in the gut every time I remembered her sneering face or her lies. I kept asking myself, is this really worth fighting for? Or is this just the end of us? I wasn't sure yet, but I knew one thing: I had to decide soon. I could no longer pretend everything was fine. If she was lying to me about this, what else was she hiding? And more than that, I had to figure out what I wanted from this mess. Do I forgive her? Do I try to rebuild? Or do I cut her loose and start over? The questions spun around in my mind, but one thing was clear. I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. I had to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. That night, sleep was impossible. My mind kept circling around everything: Lisa's lies, the logs, the betrayal. I kept asking myself how I let things get this far. We had a life, or at least I thought we did. I was trying to get better, trying to rebuild, and instead I found out my wife was sneaking around, using my own recovery tech to cheat on me. I felt like I was living in some twisted nightmare. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sneering face, the logs showing her activity, the moments. I'd trusted her blindly. The next morning, I knew I had to get some clarity. I had to do something concrete, something that would finally put an end to this game. I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time I wanted to be prepared. I started planning my approach carefully. I wanted her to admit everything. I wasn't just after her lies anymore. I needed to hear her say it outright, to see her squirm or break. I also knew I couldn't just yell at her. I had to catch her off guard, make her realize that I knew everything and that I wasn't backing down. So I set a trap. I told her I had decided to give her one last chance to tell me the truth, to come clean about everything, or else I'd be taking drastic steps. That afternoon, I deliberately left my phone in plain sight with the logs visible on my screen, knowing she'd get curious. I also left my laptop open, showing the detailed diagnostics from the suit. I wanted her to see that I was prepared, that I knew everything. She came home later that day, acting normal. At first, that is, until she saw the logs on my screen. Her face went pale and her eyes darted away quickly. I could tell she was caught off guard. I'd finally gotten her to realize I wasn't stupid or blind. I kept my voice calm but firm and told her, "Lisa, I know you've been using the suit without me. I know you've been lying, sneaking around. I even saw the messages. So why don't you just tell me what's really going on?" She tried to deny it, of course. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice shaky. "You're just paranoid, you're making this up." But I cut her off. "No, Lisa, I have the logs, I've seen your activity, you've been lying to me for weeks, so don't insult my intelligence, just say it. Are you cheating on me? Are you messing around with my tech, my body behind my back?" That's when she lost it. Her eyes flashed with fury and desperation, and she started sobbing. "You don't understand, Mike," she wailed. "You're so obsessed with that stupid suit. You think everything's about that. It's not about me, it's about you being so damn fragile that you need that thing to walk. I was just helping you, that's all. That's what we do, I support you." Her words came out in a jumble of excuses and denial, but I could see through it. She wasn't fooling anyone anymore. She was caught red-handed, and she knew it. I felt a strange mix of anger and heartbreak. I'd always tried to see the best in her, to believe that we could get through anything. But now I saw the cold truth. She didn't love me enough to be honest. She was more committed to her own lies, her own games. And the fact that she was willing to use the tech I relied on to recover, to cheat on me with someone who'd helped her lie, that broke whatever little hope I had left. In that moment, I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I had to face the reality of what she was doing and decide what I was willing to accept. It was clear now that she was not going to change, not going to tell the truth unless forced. I started drafting the mental list of what I needed to do next. I knew I couldn't keep living like this, with this constant betrayal lurking around every corner of my life. Whatever happened next, I had to do it for me, to regain some control over my shattered trust and my broken heart. After that confrontation, everything changed. I knew I had to make a decision, and honestly, it wasn't an easy one. I sat her down again, told her I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, that her lies had crossed a line I couldn't overlook. I told her I needed some space, some time to think about what I really wanted, whether to fight for what was left or to cut my losses and walk away. She tried to manipulate me, throwing in tears, guilt trips, even accusations that I was overreacting again. But I wasn't buying it anymore. Her facade was crumbling, and I saw her for what she really was, someone who didn't respect me enough to be honest, someone who'd betrayed everything I believed in. In the days that followed, I started sorting through the mess. I talked to a lawyer, gathered all the evidence I had against her, the logs, the messages, the emails. It was a lot to process, but I wanted to be prepared if things went south. I also realized that I had to prioritize myself, my recovery, and my mental health. The betrayal had taken a toll. I felt humiliated, angry, but also strangely relieved. I finally saw the truth about her, and I knew I couldn't keep pretending she was the person I thought she was. I decided to leave. Not just the house, but the marriage. I knew it was the right choice. I deserved honesty, respect, and someone who truly cared about me, not someone who betrayed me behind my back and lied so effortlessly. I told her she needed to leave too, that I couldn't have someone like her in my life anymore. Her protests were weak, her curses bitter. And honestly, I didn't care. I felt empty but also lighter, like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into therapy, working through the pain and betrayal. I kept using the exoskeleton not just to heal physically, but to remind myself that I was still capable of moving forward, even after everything. I learned that trust is fragile, easily broken, hard to repair. I also learned that sometimes you have to walk away from someone who doesn't respect you, no matter how much you loved them. Looking back now, I realize I was lucky. It hurt like hell, but I found the strength to get out of a situation that was destroying me from the inside. My experience taught me that betrayal can come from the people you trust most, but it also taught me that I am stronger than I thought. I've learned to set boundaries, to listen to my instincts, and to never ignore the warning signs again. I'm still healing, still rebuilding, but I know I'll come out of this better, more aware, more cautious, and finally more myself. To anyone dealing with something similar, trust your gut. Don't let guilt or hope blind you. The truth might hurt, but it's the only way to free yourself and start over. Because in the end, your happiness and dignity matter more than any lie someone tries to feed you. I'm not perfect, and I'm still working on trusting again. But I know now that I'm capable of walking away from betrayal and finding a way to live honestly and true to myself.